You're listening to Author Conversations, the Stenhouse Publishers podcast. As a student struggling to concentrate on boring passages of standardized reading tests, Charles Furhrken remembers thinking to himself, who writes this stuff? He had no idea that one day it'd be him. Charles has spent years working as a writer for several major testing companies. In today's podcast, he talks about his new book, What Every Elementary Teacher Needs to Know About Reading Tests, from someone who has written them.
I wanted to write this book because, as many teachers know, there's not much information available to them that truly helps them increase their knowledge about tests. In the book, I talk about tests as these mysteries that continue to perplex both teachers and students. I know that from the teachers I talk with, it's virtually impossible to know if their instruction all year long will be enough to help students show what they truly know on test day. So testing is this big, scary enterprise that it's mostly because there's so few places for teachers to turn for helpful information about tests. I also wanted to write a book that's different from the others that are currently available. There are more and more books out these days that propose to teachers that tests can be taught as a genre. And these are important because they narrate what it's like for teachers to sit alongside their students and grapple with issues related to testing. They convey what it's like to be an outsider looking in. And as far as I know, there's never been a book by an industry insider that seeks to tell teachers what they really need to know about reading tests. I think it's time, if not long overdue. So I organized the book around those things that I think teachers would appreciate knowing. I start with dispelling myths that have become popular over the years. Some of the myths have to do with the fundamentals of test construction, how tests are made and why they look the way they do, why they sound the way they do. An example of this is I thought teachers would be interested in knowing how tests from one year to the next maintain the same level of difficulty so that they're fair to all students in the assessment program. And other myths that I discuss have to do with test-taking tips. One of those I even heard as a student many years ago, and that's to choose option C when in doubt about the answer. So in this first section, I tell why there's no truth to that and other myths like it. So I envision section 1 as kind of building a foundation of knowledge about tests. And then section 2 moves on to some nuts and bolts of reading test items. The fact is that reading tests are mostly the same, especially when it comes to the kinds of reading standards that are tested and the approaches that are taken in order to test those standards. So in section 2, I take on the most commonly assessed 30 or so reading standards, and I give strategies for unlocking those test items. Because it seems a shame to me that often students might not get an item correct because they have trouble accessing it, not because they don't have the skill necessarily. So in section 2, I show samples of items and give detailed strategies and explanations for how to handle reading items. I think it's important for students to see how they can apply what they're learning in their reading class every day to the tasks that they're asked to complete on reading tests, to help kids really cross that bridge. Kids have to be test savvy. They have to be able to tap into the test sense, the logic, the reason of the test, if they're to do well. And that's my main focus throughout the book. The rest of the book is, I'd call it a resource, really. It's not information that teachers need to read from start to finish. They can dip in and out and go after the topics that their students really need help on. For instance, section 4 is all about skill building. There's activities that are fun and engaging and literature-based, and they really help to equip students with the skills they'll need to bring to the table on test day. And if students need help on, say, story theme or on recognizing figurative language, then teachers can just turn to the activities that address those standards. actually, I've gotten some really good feedback already on the activities. One email from a teacher said, your activities are a hit. The kids think they're just playing games. And I love that comment because I read and I hear about test practice and how it can be so mundane and draining and dreaded for the students and for the teacher. And so this teacher said also that she found that the activities were flexible, that she didn't always use the picture book that I suggested or the story excerpt, or she changed around how she ended the activity or transitioned, and she could use the activities with a novel the kids were already reading. And what I like about that is that this teacher really sees the activities section in the book as a resource rather than some kind of prescribed plan. There's no script to follow. There's no one way fits all, one size fits all. You can see from the student samples in the book, I think, that the kids were really enjoying themselves and engaged in the texts they were using. They don't see it as preparation for a test, mostly, I'm guessing, because the activities look far different from endless photocopied passage and item sets, worksheet style. So test preparation should do more than have an end date, a deadline in the spring. It should be about building reading skills for use well beyond that one testing window in the spring. You know, getting kids ready for tests in ways that they don't dread. You know, that's just a win-win situation.
What every elementary teacher needs to know about reading tests, from someone who has written them, by Charles Furhrken, is available now at www.stenhouse.com and your local distributor. Thanks for listening.